Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Elevated Health. I'm here with my man Jake, El
What's up,
Senor
boys?
Bum Knees.
What was that? Bum knees?
Bum Knees.
Bum
He's
knees.
back. Hey, I got a bum knee right now with
Yeah,
this
so I
meniscus.
heard.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that after this pod. But today, we were just looking through what we've recorded thus far, and I feel like we haven't really done much of a deep dive on training. So we're going to give you guys a training specific episode. And where we're going to be pulling all these topics from that we're talking about is actually an ebook that Jake put together called Balkan Season for all my guys who are trying to put on muscle without, bogus supplements or like unwanted fat or just like, I don't know. I feel like the stigma is maybe eat until you got to puke, like stuff like that. So today we're going to be talking about the training specific aspect of this ebook around just how to put on muscle and what your training should look like, and then how you can vary your training to keep it fun, keep it fresh, hit different goals. Like for me, working with Jake, I've dunked a basketball, I've prepped for a marathon, like I've had the strength goals of deadlifting 6, like, goals have varied. How does training vary? That's what we're going to talk about today. So, what's up,
Yes,
brother?
sir. Not much. It's good to be back. Took a little hiatus from this podcast.
Yeah, we're back in the saddle, man. We're back to pumping quality content for the people. Simple
Yes,
as that.
sir.
So, how do you want to kick this thing off? In your ebook here, I'm reading literally section 1 is how to train.
Yep. So, how to train? I feel like a lot of people go in the gym and they just go in mindlessly. They don't have a plan. They kind of just go from machine to machine, wander around, guess on weights. Like sometimes they don't even know what exercise works, like what muscles. So just how to train, meaning go in and train with intention, and lifting weights. I mean, that's the main thing you do at the gym, right? You don't really go to the gym to do cardio, which I mean you can do, but the main reason to go to a gym is to lift weights. So lifting heavy weights, pushing yourself, whether that's barbell work, dumbbell, machine, cables, like all this equipment that you have. Just make sure you're going in with a plan, sets, reps, certain exercises. If it's an upper day, is there a focus? Is it a push day? Is it a pull day? What certain muscle groups are you going to hit? Go in with a plan, and just, find what you enjoy doing. So if you don't like the big three, if you don't like bench, squat, deadlift, then don't do it. Do different variations. If you'd rather do like a dumbbell chest press, do a dumbbell chest press instead of a bench press. If you don't like, deadlifts with a barbell, then do some kind of other hinge, like an RDL, or I don't know, some machine or some good mornings, something of a hinge type. Just there are different replacements, different variations. Just find out what you like and go in with the plan.
Yeah. If you don't have a plan, come get that plan from Jake. Shameless plug.
Mm-hmm.
But there's one thing you said, like most people don't even know like what muscles they're training when they're doing a specific movement. And I wanted to highlight that because I think a lot of people can just simply benefit from, in more ways than one, but can benefit from knowing like what movement trains what muscle. Like when you're doing bench, what muscles are you training? Because then when you go do a bench press, you can focus on my chest, my triceps, my shoulders. Like, am I feeling these things in these areas? And now we can get into, how the bench plays into the back and the legs and all that stuff. But that's niche stuff for power lifters, I guess, or people wanting to get stronger and stuff. So whatever. But
Yep.
what the point I want to make is like, one, you'll build your muscles a lot more. If you just know what movements train what muscle. So just go do a quick or put a list together or something. Like it won't take long to learn. Because they're all similar variations. Like Jake was saying, like when you have a deadlift and an RDL, a Romanian deadlift, it's like a variation of the deadlift. So it's going to train very similar muscles. So when you pick up on, say, a hinge movement pattern of the body, you're going to really learn what the hinge movement patterns train. It's not going to take you very long to string different exercises together to understand the muscles that they target and hit. What that's going to do is going to give you that mind to muscle connection that's so often probably misinterpreted and misconstrued, but we could talk about that. It's going to help you to build that muscle, and it's going to help you to do it safely. Like, I feel like when I go into the gym and maybe I'm doing a squat and I feel that squat in an area I know I shouldn't be feeling that squat, that's probably an injury or some fatigue, or something is not right here. Or maybe I need to go warm up more. Like, maybe something's, off, something's tight, something's about to pop, snap, crackle, whatever. So I just wanted to like pull that out and extract that real quick, because every single person can benefit from that, from knowing what movements, train what muscle. And what the biggest thing that I realized too of how you can benefit from that is how you can adapt in the gym when the machines are taken. I
Yep.
train at a commercial gym in a big city, and the machines are just taken sometimes. But me, with my education and understanding, no problem. The lat pull down's taken, cool. I'll go do straight arm push downs to hit my lats instead. Like, it's such an easy adaptation in the gym where I can still get my workout in efficiently. And I refuse to wait on machines. I don't know if it's because I'm stubborn, but I've never stood in the line. Only thing I've stood in the line for is a platform, like a bench squat deadlift type
Yep.
thing, a big three type thing. But a machine, you'll never find me standing in line. I am adapting, picking a new movement that I know trains the same muscle I'm trying to hit, and going on with my life.
Yep. Yeah, that's something that I got real good at, just working as an in-person trainer. When you have clients, you're working at a commercial gym. If you're training someone at 5 p.m., which is, like the busiest time, everybody heads to the gym after work, all these machines are taken. You have this workout plan written down, but odds are it's not going to go exactly as planned. So you kind of gotta, be on your feet and be able to make a decision. Like you were saying, like if a pull down machine is taken, try a different pull down, or like a pull up. If all the benches are taken, you can't do barbell bench. Do some other kind of push movement, some other movement that's going to target your chest, your shoulders, your triceps. So it's just it's all about training movements and then just adding different variations off of those certain movements.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a great place for people to start with that is the machines. Like, the machines are the easiest to figure out what muscle does this train, because the machine literally says on it, shoulder press, quad extension, or something like hamstring curl. Like, if
Yep.
you go look at the machine and actually read, which I look at it like every time I'm doing a machine, I'm like reading the thing just because I'm kind of bored, but I'm working out. But if you literally look, most often you'll see like a skeleton, a muscle skeleton of a body, and it'll have the areas highlighted of the body that it is training. So I think that's the best place to start, is just go around, look at the machines as you're doing them. Look at, okay, that says it should be training my chest and my shoulders. Is that where I'm feeling it? No, something must be wrong. Form, something must be off. More often than not with the machine, your form is not off. But
Yep. And like going into what you said before, you said if you feel it in certain areas where you shouldn't be, like for example, a squat. Like obviously, when you do a squat, you should be feeling it in your glutes and your quads, hip and knee extension. If you're feeling it in somewhere like your hip flexors, then it's probably because the intended muscle group is not working like it should be. And that's kind of what he was saying, is that mind muscle connection. Like something's not firing, so other muscles are working in place because you're not using the certain muscle group that you should be. So that's kind of something that you learn with experience as you work out. You learn what works for you. You learn certain ways to warm up your body, certain angles to hit the intended muscle group, and not use something that you shouldn't be using.
yeah, and that's been for me like the key to deadlifting 600 pounds. I think is what you just said right there. I mean, aside from a ton of just hard work, lifting heavy, whatever, but it's when I go in to train and I step onto the deadlift platform, can I feel the muscles that are firing and the muscles that aren't firing? And when you're doing a 600-pound deadlift, like your entire body is being worked and you can feel that. So when you step onto that platform, though, you have to have the awareness of every single piece that's involved in that puzzle that is picking up 600 pounds. And you have to know that it is operating how it should. You have to be able to feel it, almost just like subconsciously after you put in thousands and thousands and thousands of reps. Um, but yeah, so like getting stronger and doing it safely is being able to go into the gym and feel, okay, this is feeling proper, everything's feeling right. My core is activating on that squat so that my spine doesn't have some problems, which we don't need to get into all the specific, instances because there's millions, but yeah, go in,
Yep.
feel what you're supposed to feel and make sure everything's feeling right.
And yeah, that's something that takes time. I mean, like we're sitting here, we both have 10, 15 years of experience each of lifting weights, and it takes time to learn yourself, learn your body, but it goes so much faster when you have somebody who's been there and done that, who can give you cues, give you tips, kind of guide you through there. I mean, it's almost like your results can be done in half the time because they know what they're doing and they can help you along the way. So you're not out there stranded alone on an island.
Yeah. And that's exactly why we put together this ebook. I mean, Jake put a ton of information in this ebook to fast track those results and give you the education you need to do it in half the time.
Yep.
And obviously the opportunity to work one-on-one as well. But let's talk about within that, how to train. Let's talk about reps. I don't know if you included this or not, but I feel like a rep scheme is something that I even still, question today. Like, I'll be in the gym, like, how many reps should I hit on this? Like, and I make decisions based on certain variables. But curious, just like for you, like, what are you thinking about when you're programming for somebody, and maybe you're putting 4 reps or 2 reps versus 10 reps or 12 reps? Like, what's the thought process there?
Yeah. So I always, I guess at the start of the workout, like that's when I typically program in more heavy lifts, like compound movements, the squat, bench, deadlift, maybe even like some rows and, lunges, stuff like that. But those are the ones you want to hit heavy, those compound meaning compound joint. You're using more than one joint, more than one muscle group. So you're going to be able to lift a lot more weight than you would like on an isolated exercise with it's like one muscle group. So on these compound lifts, like you're going for strength. You're aiming for strength. You want your muscle to be working as hard as it can. At least that's the approach that I take. So I'll never myself or program for a client to be doing reps of 10 or 12 on a deadlift or like a bench. I think you load up the bar, hit it between 3 to 5 reps, maybe even 6 at times, or like a 1 rep max. And that's the way I approach it. Is you go for strength on these compound lifts, and then other accessories, like let's say you're hitting an upper body day, you hit bench, right? Bench, maybe it's 5 sets of 5. You're working on your strength, and then you move on to your next exercise. Maybe it's incline dumbbell. You can go heavy on that, but maybe up the reps a little bit, maybe 8 to 10 reps. And then you got some chest flies, which you can go heavy and go 8 to 10 reps, or you can get more volume and more reps, really try to blow up your chest as a finisher on these flies and hit 15 reps or something like that. So
Love it.
that's the approach that I take.
So I was kind of just jotting notes over here, as the people can probably see. But so starting out, we got compound movement to start your workout. Obviously, this is something you're warming up for, not just jumping straight into.
Yep.
I want to get that across for anyone who might be listening. Starting with low reps there, really pushing himself, going heavy. And then kind of as the workout goes on, your reps kind of increase, I guess, is what you're saying. You go from a low rep to almost like a dumbbell, a bench, let's say, to a dumbbell bench. The bench maybe sets of 4 or 6, and the dumbbell bench maybe 6, 8, even 10. And then you maybe have like a chest fly on a machine or a cable or something that's, I don't know, 10 to 15 potentially.
Yep. And I tend to go more reps on isolated exercise, like a bicep curl or a chest fly, because I don't think there's any reason to be going extremely heavy on, just a single muscle group like that, I think that's when you hit your volume. When you go heavy on your compound lifts, that's when you up the weight and lessen the reps.
Yeah. And isolated, obviously, opposite of compound. Like he's saying, just one muscle is being worked, the bicep, the chest. A bench is not an isolated movement. You got a bunch of muscles doing a thing. Versus if you go over to that bicep curl machine, you're only hitting your biceps. Definitely want to depict that for everybody.
Yep.
Within these reps, though, like I feel like the next question, probably coming with reps, is weight. So, like when you're programming for a client, or maybe even training in the gym yourself, what's the thought there of like, okay, well, if I'm doing 4 reps on the bench, is it as heavy as I can go for 4? What's kind of the thought process around the weight I should be doing?
Yeah, that's where the programming like specifics come into play. Is, I mean, as much as anyone, it's depending on your goals. Like if you're really trying to work on your bench and you're trying to increase that strength, I know you and I both like the conjugate method where you're working, heavy one week and speed one week. Some clients that like aren't as serious about bench, but still want to do it and work on it. Sometimes I'll just have them, hit 4 to 6 reps, try to go as hard as you can on these 4 to 6 reps and just try to build off that each week. But with certain guys who like their number one goal is to increase their bench, that's when I'll kind of play with percentages, RPEs, go heavy one week, work on speed another week. When they send me a video and I see a weakness somewhere, then maybe hit an accessory that'll, help with that. Maybe even add in some pauses, some slowing negatives, different variations to help blow up that bench.
Yeah. Let's not go into all these different methods, but I think there's one basic, simple method that you even mentioned in the ebook, and I think really where everyone should be starting and focusing, and it's where I always default to when I'm training. And I think it's a piece of every other method as well, but what I'm referring to is just progressive overload. So I guess we're just talk to us about that.
Yeah, so progressive overload is just doing more and more and more and progressively overloading the weight. So if you're stuck at a certain weight for like 3 or 4 weeks in a row and you're not increasing your reps, you're not increasing your weight, then you're not getting stronger. You're not doing more towards, to the muscle to grow, right? It's just like with anything, you got to be a little uncomfortable in order to grow. Same thing when you're lifting weights. You got to be able to do more the next week than you do the previous week. So I think an example I used was something like a seated row. Like if you do 4 sets of 8, then the next week try to do more than that 32 reps total. Try to get 33, try to get 34 reps. That's where the I guess rep scheme comes into play. Is like if your intended rep range is like 8 to 10 reps, if you're starting at the the 8 number, try to work your way up to 10, and then when you're able to work your way up towards the top of that rep range, then you increase the weight. Instead of 100 pounds next week, try 105 pounds or 110 pounds. And then you'll be back down towards the bottom of that rep range. And then you just try to keep doing more and more each week. And I mean, there are different ways you can progressively overload. I like to start with reps first, try to max out your rep range, then increase your weight. You can look at
real quick, what does it mean to max out the rep range?
So just getting towards the top, like if it's 8 to 10, 8 to 10 reps and you're doing 4 sets, like doing 4 sets of 10 reps, you would be, hitting the top of that rep range. Okay. Or if you're like 4 sets through and you hit like 10, 10, 9, 9, and you've been in that, on that same weight for like 4 weeks, then go ahead, bump it up. I mean, you're pretty close. And then, try to increase the weight just so you're not stuck at the same numbers week after week after week.
Yeah. And I think something to add, like I've never trained personally with a rep range ever. I've always had a specific rep number. But something I think we can speak to is RPE or RIR or whatever these people want to use. Percentages is what I've always preferred. Obviously, it's different on accessory movements, but talk to us about like what those mean and yeah, just what you use and what your perspective is around those. Because I think that people really need to hear that, not to get away from progressive overload, but I think it kind of plays into it.
Yeah. So rate or RPE is rate of perceived exertion. So it's on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 obviously being the hardest, you're exerting maximum effort. So exercises with, an RPE of 10, it's go until failure. Like you can't do another rep, even if there's a gun held to your head. Like you physically cannot, you went to failure. That's what that is. That's what a 10 is. Um, and then, like a 8 or 9 is, you have like a rep or two left in the tank, which is RIR, reps in reserve. You have a few reps left over, and that it just all goes into intensity. Are you training till failure? Are you leaving a few reps in the tank? What's your approach? I think I don't know. What do you prefer doing? If you don't do a rep range, are you going off of RPE each week?
Yeah, no, I don't like RPE. And that reason being is because I feel like RPE brings too many emotions into it. Like, I just think that with lifting, I've experienced where I felt really bad and put up the best numbers sometimes. Like, it just happens that way. So that's why I don't like RPEs, because you're in your head. You step in and it's like, all right, RPE 8 today. Well, that kind of leaves it up to my interpretation based on how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I've never liked programming for clients that way. Because if you step in and you had a stressful day at work, like, you're not going to feel very good about being in the gym. But it may be that thing with pushing yourself that gets you out of your head that has that breakthrough that hits that new PR in the gym. So for me, I've really never gone based on RPE. I've always just done just a progressive overload, uh, like where I'm gonna do this rep range of 4 sets of 8. What is the most weight I can do? And I always find it, like, and what I mean by that is, like, I will start every single movement I go to. I warm up on. I don't know if I should do that or not, but
I do the same
like
thing.
if I do a lat pull down, I'll start at like 50 pounds and I will progress that pin down, and then I'll do my 3 working sets or whatever I have for the day. But I warm up on every single movement. Seat a row, even if my back is completely pumped and it's the last movement of the day, I'm still starting lighter than I know I'm going to finish. So I guess, like, what I'm saying is, if whatever prescribed 4 sets of 8, I will start with a weight, do it, and then I will just literally find out where I hit 8 reps and I can't do another one, where that failure point is every single time, and then I'll be like, okay, that was where my 8 was. I'll do my 4 sets there.
Yep.
So that's how I go about it.
Yeah. And I think I do that same approach is, like you said, if you've done 1 or 2 back exercises already and you're hitting seated rows and your back's already warm, like I start low and try to work my way up as well. Not as many. I kind of treat them like warm up sets. I'll do like half the reps and just, make
Yeah.
these bigger jumps. But like I make sure to hit a set or two before I hit, like, actually start my working sets. And for those who don't know, the working sets are like the sets that are programmed. I'm talking about like these warm up sets that they don't even count. They just try to get the movement down. And then if it's like a 4x8, I do my couple warm up sets, which do not count towards those 4 sets. And then once I hit, a weight that's, heavy enough, then I start my 4 sets. But especially when you're starting out like a new phase of program, like if you hit, or if you're starting to do an exercise that you haven't hit in a couple weeks, maybe even a couple months, like that first week is like an experimentation week. Like you haven't hit, like these seated rows, in a month or so. So maybe you don't even know what weight you should be doing. So that first week you're kind of experimenting with the sets, or sorry, the weight on, and the reps. So as
Yeah.
you kind of work your way up, you'll get a feel for, okay, towards the end of, my sets, I was at, 100 pounds for 9 reps. So next week I can, start close to 100, maybe, and try a little bit heavier, maybe even try, another rep or two. So when you're first starting out on an exercise, that's kind of, you get a feel for what weight you can actually do. and then you kind of build off of that on the next week. Did I cut out?
No, we're good. Yeah, you did, but it's good. A lot of points I feel like are tying together here. Like, I think when say the seated row, like somebody might be wondering, well, why did these guys do warm up sets on every single movement? Well, I think it's two things. Like, number one, feeling the proper muscle, like we talked about in the beginning. Like, when I go to do a seated row, I like to make sure the right things are contracting and it's feeling good. Because when I know I go heavy, you're just in it. You're there, and if the right things aren't firing, like it's going to lead to injury. Like, it's just inevitable. And
Yep.
especially my point number two makes sense to point number one is when you've been training for a long time, every single set or movement you do is heavy. It's just heavy. Like, dude, sometimes I'm tired of training because if I want to like push my dumbbell bench, like if I want to do a set of 10 of dumbbell bench, like I have to grab the hundreds or more. Like, and it's just like, I really don't even want to carry the hundreds over to the bench right now. Like, but it's like the same thing of like if I go to do dumbbell bench, even if I just did barbell bench and I just immediately go grab those hundreds, like, and things aren't feeling the way they're supposed to be feeling. I didn't check it out, with the dumbbells prior. That could lead to injury because I have 200 pounds in dumbbells in my hands, which is like a hard thing to sit there and press. Um, so I think it's just something to be said. Like, as you're, when we're doing seated rows, we're doing 160, 180 pounds with the pin. Like, the seated rows are heavy. So it's like, that's why I think we warm up is like, we got to make sure everything's good so we don't get hurt because we are about to take this to the moon because we have to. Like,
Yep.
like just because we've been training for a while. Like, it's just what happens. You have to keep adapting with stress. So you have to keep going heavier. We've been progressive overloading for years now. So, and it's kind of funny. We'll be in the gym, like Tony and I, and she'll like up my weight on me. And I can always like pretty much do the higher weight that she moves it to. But I'm like, I don't want to do that right now. Like, no. So it's just funny. But yeah, just a point I wanted to make there on warm ups. But going back to what you were talking about with progressing, you said you max out the rep range first is what you like to do.
Yeah.
How else can we really progress in the gym to challenge us and make us uncomfortable without, I guess, reps? Or what's your next thing there?
Obviously you can bump up the weight. You don't have to bump it up 20 pounds. 5 pounds is enough. If you keep increasing 5 pounds like every month or so, that's 60 pounds in a week or in a year. So the progressive overload, it is progressive. You don't just bump it up instantly. Another way, you can add more sets, maybe add one set the next week, add in some more volume. You can decrease the rest times. If you're taking about 90 seconds in between, bump it down to maybe 75, give yourself a little less time to make the muscles work a little harder, a little less time to recover. I think I talked about, pauses and, like, especially on a bench press, instead of doing, 5 reps of, just straight reps, maybe bump it down to 3 reps and bump the reps down, or you can bump the weight down and add in like a 2 to 3 second pause on the chest just to increase time under tension, especially if, down low is your sticking point. Like, there are these different things that you can do to make these sets harder than just, increasing the reps.
Yeah. I mean, it all comes down to when I program or program in the past. I don't do much programming anymore ever, but it all comes down to an equation for me. Like, I had an intensity equation, and it was reps, weight, and time. Like, on the other side of the equal sign, if it's always trying to equal 100, let's say, which is the effort, 100% effort, how do I vary those variables, but it always equal 100? So what that means is, like, if my reps are 10 and my weight is 50 pounds and I'm doing it in, I don't know, 60 seconds with a 2-minute rest break, and that equals 100. Well, then what can I do to change those variables to still stress my body and push myself, but still keep it at 100? Well, if I lower reps, something else has to increase. So the weight would have to increase to keep it at 100, or the time has to change. And then there's 2 ways to really change the time. You can shorten your rest break, or 3 ways, I guess. Shorten your rest break, shorten the amount of time you give yourself to do the movement. So if you're going to do 10 reps, maybe you do them in 20 seconds versus a minute, or you make it longer, more time and attention, like Jake's saying. You do pauses where now you're going to, I don't know, hold a plank for 5 minutes. It's way harder than holding a plank for a minute. So there's different ways that you can manipulate time, reps, and weight to always get that like max effort, I guess, that I always refer to. But I always use that formula when I was programming for guys. And
Yeah. No, just I look at volume. That's like I just say increase volume. So volume meaning the load, which is the weight, the reps, and the sets. If you multiply those three numbers, it equals a number. That's your total volume. So I try to increase volume each week.
yeah, I think it goes right into what you got in the book here: volume versus intensity.
Yes.
What is I know we've been kind of tiptoeing all around it right now, maybe even straight into it, but what does that mean, and I guess expand upon that.
Yeah, well, it's like one of the biggest arguments between like lifters is what's better, doing more volume, which is work. What I just said is load times sets times reps, or intensity, which we kind of touched this on this earlier, like RP, like 9 or 10, like going until failure. Typically, if you're doing high volume, you don't have high intensity because you can't keep up, maximal effort and do, 5 sets, 6 sets, do all this volume with, maximum effort. So I know a lot of the like bodybuilders back in the day, like especially Arnold, he was all about the volume approach, doing, a bunch of reps, bunch of sets, bunch of, just volume. And then a lot of guys nowadays are kind of saying like, well, how about I increase the effort and just do less reps? Like, how about I just go as hard as I can, and be in the gym for, less time. And that's, it's these two different approaches, which even if it is high volume, it's not that you're not working hard. You're just doing, maybe an RP of 7 or 8 instead of an RP 10. And, intensity, a lot of guys take the approach of doing two sets of each exercise. Like they will go till failure on those 2 sets and they don't worry about the total volume approach because they just go till failure. They stimulate the muscle and then they move on to their next exercise.
Yeah, biggest piece I'm thinking about of what you're saying right now is these two different approaches. I think the biggest thing you could argue about those two different approaches, one, both can work,
Yep.
but I think two, we got to look at factors outside of training as well. How are you fueling? Like Arnold, he lives and dies by training, so I bet he's eating meals in the middle of his training. Like he can get in there and do volume sets, reps for hours. He's probably sitting there eating. He's on a bunch of roids and stuff like that too. So it's like there's we don't have to get into that, but I'm saying there's factors outside of it as well. There's stress, stress from your life. Like is your job super stressful? Is something bad going on in your life? Family life, like that stress can affect your ability to do weights in the gym. It's just reality. Like stress on the body makes it hard to go perform in the gym. So I would also like if someone's like wondering about these two different paths, like I think both can definitely work, and both maybe even have their time and place in your training right now. Like whoever's listening to this, maybe you do both already, and a mixture of both. But I think you got to look at outside factors as well. If you're going to work out at that volume, I think you got to be fueling, and you got to be probably fueling during your workout to be able to push for 90 minutes of a ton of volume. I know for me, like my workouts right now are like 30 to 45 minutes.
Yeah.
But I get a ton done, man. I'm rolling. But I use a ton of supersets. So it's like I basically use like my supersets as my rest, which we could talk about. But I move
Yeah.
quick
Well,
and I do other stuff as well. Like I do a lot of mobility, sauna around my training too. So I'm in the gym for over an hour, but usually I'm lifting and doing something else with it.
yeah. I just want to say like there's no like right answer which one is better. It's kind of whatever works for you. Like you could be training volume or intensity and be in this gym the same amount of time. Like if you want to do, a bunch of reps, like if you want to do a 5-set by 10 reps on seated rows and take like 60 seconds in between each set, and do that. And then you have other guys who do like 2 sets and take like 3 or 4 minutes in between those 2 sets because they just go, as hard as they can, and they actually need that time to recover. So if you're one of those guys who, hates resting, hates waiting around, and just wants to go, then, take that volume approach and maybe leave a rep or 2 left in the tank so you can hit it hard again.
Dude, I've always done a ton of volume, but I've also always done a ton of intensity.
Yep.
And that leads to 2-hour workouts. That's a formula for 2-hour workouts.
Yep.
That was, during the prime, I guess you could say, when I was really pushing strength, it was a ton of volume, but we were in there for so long training. And honestly, I think you were one of the first guys who really like challenged me on that. Like, 'cause I think there was one day you like asked me like, how many chest movements do you do in a workout? I think it was chest specifically.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know, like a ton. A ton, bro. Like I'll go bench, dumbbell bench, chest fly, dips, push-ups. Like I'll do all of these movements. I'll do like 8 different movements. I think you asked me actually how many chest sets do you do in a workout?
Okay. Yeah.
Like sets of chest exercises.
Total sets. Yeah, I do
total
remember
sets.
that.
A ton. I'll do like 6 different chest movements with like 4 sets each. Most like I'm like doing like 20 plus sets, and you're like, I think you said like 12 maybe. Like you should be doing 12 sets, or you were thinking about 12 sets, or I don't know.
Yeah. So this is where it comes into like that, that volume, and then like you got junk volume and all this stuff. Like I don't think it matters if you're seeing results. Like if it's working for you, then it's working for you. If you have the time to do all that volume and, be in the gym and it's working for you, then it's working for you. But I think at a certain point, your muscle, it just can't, put the max effort out anymore. So like at a certain point, you'll reach a point to where you're not getting as much out of the set. So some people say you're wasting time. That used to be me until, I really, experimented with the volume, like finishing with, deficit push-ups, doing like 5 sets of 20, like 100 total reps. And it really does, boost the, the work capacity. It's, and kind of what we were saying before is, feeling the actual muscle being worked. It's a great way, these finishers to, burn out that muscle, make sure, it's actually, training till failure. And I mean, there are so many different ways you can approach it, but if you don't have the time, usually I say at least, 6 sets per muscle group, like per week. I think that's enough to, yeah. So if you're only able to make it to the gym like 2 or 3 times, obviously you're not going to be able to split your days up, like hitting chest this day, hitting back this day, legs, then you got an arm day, then you got a core day. Like you kind of got to pile on top, especially if you don't have enough time in the gym. So that's where I recommend like 6 sets. You don't have to do more than that, and I think you will see some growth.
Yeah. I do way more than that. I mean, I hit chest twice a week, so
Yeah.
but I train 6 days out of the week when I'm just focused on lifting, which right now I'm in that season, back in that season of just focused on lifting. No more running, which is exciting. So
I bet.
yeah, dude, especially now I got this bum knee.
Yeah.
Seemingly torn meniscus for everybody listening from running 16 miles, which running such a scam. But we'll talk about cardio here in a second. But now, I can't really train legs right now. So, dude, I literally run out of body parts. To tell Tanya, I'm like, I hit biceps yesterday. I hit back the day before that. Like, and I did a ton of pressing the day before that. I'm like, guess I'm back to pressing. So, like, I'm just like on this 3-day rotation of upper body parts. It's hilarious. Yeah. So we don't need to get into that, but we just covered volume versus intensity. I know next in the book was progressive overload, which we jumped the gun on. Let me just double check here if we covered everything.
Yeah.
Is there anything that's sticking out to you?
No, I think I think the last thing on there was cardio.
Oh yeah, perfect. Which I just mentioned. So
Yep.
yeah, running is a scam. I'll just
Yep.
start with that. Talking about cardio. No, no, no. Running's not a scam. It's actually it's pretty cool. It's pretty fun. Like I think I like the mindfulness aspect of it. You know, just getting alone with your thoughts, being out, just nothing but you and the outdoors. But the reason I say running is a scam is I was prepping for a marathon, and at the volume, that volume of running, I do think it is very quick to yield uh, diminishing returns. I guess is the word I'm looking for. Now, some people are going to be like, "What do you mean? There's people who run 100 miles." Awesome, but I guarantee you, they live and breathe health, to do everything they can to keep their joints healthy and to feel good. And they are optimized if they're going out and running 100 miles. They are doing a lot for that. I think for the person who is trying to look the best, feel the best, I don't think running a good amount of miles is the answer. Yeah, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean we've spoken on this before. I don't know if we talked about it on podcast, but just you and I, like if you want to look good, you lift weights so you can, you can look like a man, you can be big, you can be strong.
You look like a grown man. Don't run
Exactly.
miles. Yeah, no
But I
cross
mean
country runner.
you lift. I mean number one for strength and performance, but obviously to look good too, right? And if you're running, you're not, putting the muscle under stress to grow. So a lot of these runners, they'll be, super skinny, which, if that's you, and that if you like that, that's fine. But I like having some muscle on my frame. Um, and I mean, just if you think about the time, I mean, you can get a quality weight workout in like 30 minutes. Like I prefer, being in gym for 60, 70 minutes, whatever. But you can get a good workout in 30 minutes. For like yeah, for endurance runners, like it takes you over an hour to run, 10 miles or you know, most people are running a half marathon and what is it, like 2 hours or something, maybe a little less than that.
If they're
I mean,
good, yeah.
yeah. So it takes so much time, so much more time, I should say, to actually um, get good at this endurance. You got to put so much more time into your training, and that kind of takes away from your weightlifting as well. You can
Yeah.
get sufficient amount of cardio in a 10-15 minute time. If you hit cardio 10-15 minutes, a couple days a week, you're fine. You can
Yeah.
even incorporate some cardio stuff into your weight workout. But I think it's just, if you want to be strong and look good, you prioritize weights over cardio and endurance.
Yeah. Endurance specifically. Like I think with cardio it's similar to what we were talking about. Like there's the volume and there's the intensity route. Like I think both are needed to be a good endurance athlete. Don't get me wrong, but we're not talking about becoming an endurance athlete. Neither of us have that desire. And we're trying to get jacked and look good doing it and be strong. So with that being said, cardio does play a role in doing that, in getting jacked, in blood flow and heart health and cardiovascular health. Like all that stuff is vital to putting on muscle and recovering. And so what Jake's saying, like 10 to 15 minutes a couple times a week, that's high intensity cardio. That's getting the heart rate up. That's not your 10-minute mile, 1 mile run a couple times a week. Like unless the 10-minute mile really pushes you, but like the 10-minute mile is not going to get that heart rate really elevated for a long period of time. Like that's going to be 10 minutes of just low slow running for a mile and then done. So he's not saying go run like 3 miles a week, three separate 1 mile runs at a 10 to 12 minute pace, 10 to 15-minute pace, and you're good. He's saying train high intensity cardio, get a ton out of cardio in a little amount of time by pushing yourself within the cardiovascular space really intensely. So, sprints is my favorite. I think everyone should be doing barefoot sprints if you want to be the healthiest version of yourself.
Yep.
I think it's like one of the top movements you could do. Sprints. Assault bike, I know, is a big one. Assault bike. I know.
I
I
mean,
would even incorporate
any
carries.
yeah, I would say any like sport. I mean, just going out and playing some pickup basketball, or
Yeah.
just things like that, to where you can make it more fun. Even throwing a frisbee around. Like, obviously, it's not that's more casual, but you can do some more high intensity cardio. Within sports. Um, Another thing is, I think, like, cardio gets this negative connotation around it when you're trying to bulk, right? When you're trying to put on size, because when you do cardio, you burn so many more calories than you do, I should say, at that certain point, than you do
Yeah.
weightlifting. But if you go out and, you run for 10 minutes, you're probably not burning more than like 100 to 200 calories, which is not hard to make up by eating. But if you're going out and running 10 miles, like, maybe you're burning 1,000 calories. Like, that is so much harder to make up for in your diet, when you have to eat 1,000 more calories than you should be, because you just burned all that running 10 miles.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the thing of with time. Running 10 miles takes 2 hours, and you're doing something for 2 hours is putting your body to the test. You have a lot more stress, and you're burning a lot more of that fuel. And so, if you're trying to put on muscle and build, you need fuel. So, but I will just go into the reason as to why you said not in that moment. The reason he said that was talking about burning calories with running versus lifting. If you go do an hour workout versus an hour run, you're going to burn a lot more calories during that hour when you're running. But the cool thing about lifting with building muscle is where the I guess metabolism occurs, where things metabolize is within the muscle. So the more muscle mass you have, the higher your metabolic rate. So you burn more calories at all times. So, like, sitting here right now, we are burning calories. Jake and I, we got a good amount of muscle mass on our body, low body fat percentage, and that muscle mass is causing us to burn calories. But that's taken a lot of workouts that didn't burn as many calories as runs would have. But now we basically get to burn calories while we sleep, while we sit and watch TV, we're burning calories. And that's why it's really like, once you have a great baseline of a body, it's pretty hard to lose it. That's why people can go from training very intensely, 2 hour workouts for a decade, then they can go to training for 30 minutes or training twice a week, 3 times a week. It's because you have such a foundation built. Your metabolism is in a good spot. Your metabolic health is in a good spot where you can keep weight off very easy because of all the work you did for, years prior.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's like, I know we're talking, about bulking, but if you're trying to lose weight, make sure you're lifting weights, because if you're just doing cardio, nothing but cardio, the only time you're really burning a bunch of calories is if you're running. Like, if
Yeah.
you continue lifting weights, like Matt said, you're going to be putting on more muscle. So your metabolism is going to be increasing, and you're going to be burning more calories while at rest.
Yeah. And, before we even jumped on the episode, we were talking about training, and, you had said, like, it doesn't really vary if you're trying to put on size or trying to lose weight. Like the training fundamental principles remain the same. Like, I would give the same program to someone trying to bulk as I would someone trying to lose weight if they have the same, capabilities as a person, of
Yep.
course. But even if you're trying to lose weight or gain weight right now, like, you need to have good cardiovascular health, and you need to be trying to put on muscle. It's like you go hit the weights in the gym and you go hit high intensity cardio for, about an hour a week. Like,
Yeah.
obviously broken up, but it's just like it's the same formula. There's really not much change in the training aspect. Obviously, calories and food. We've recorded other episodes on that. That's a different conversation. But with training, like, you're trying to build, regardless, build muscle or lose weight. The best way to lose weight is to build muscle. So
Yep.
build.
Exactly. Yeah. And when you're in the gym, you take that approach of, you like Matt just said, build. You're trying to get stronger. Whether you gain weight or lose weight, that's all in the nutrition part. That's in the kitchen. That all comes down to calories. But when you're in the gym, just try to get as strong as you can. Try to lift heavy.
Yeah, absolutely. One question I did have, and then I assume we'll wrap this thing up because we don't have many more topics. We don't have any more topics in terms of the ebook training section specifically. Obviously, there's a recovery section and a nutrition section. So if you're in Elevate, check out that ebook, give it a download. It'll be up by the time this episode's up. So definitely go hit that. But one question I have for you before we close out is with progressive overload. I know somebody's just latching on to this thought of progressive overload. And they're like, you know what? I'm going to start tracking my reps and my weight.
Mm-hmm.
Will they always be able to go up every week?
No. So when you, yeah, I mean, at a certain point, you'll hit that kind of plateau. Like you've been doing the same exercise for, 6 to 8 weeks, you're going to get a point to where you just can't get any stronger at that point. And that's kind of where maybe you switch up variations. Like if you're doing a seated row, I just say that because we've been using that example so many times. If you do a seated row, and you've been doing that for 2 months and you keep increasing, and then you're kind of getting to the point to where like, man, this is so heavy. I just can't increase anymore. Switch up variations. Try, a chest supported seated row machine. Just different things that you can change up variation wise. And just looking at like a row is a compound movement, right? So it's a little easier to increase weight because you're putting on more weight or you're lifting more weight. With isolation exercise, like a side raise, right? If you're doing, 15-pound dumbbell side raise, it's going to be hard to boost 5 pounds because that's a 33% increase just to bump it up to 20 pounds. Like that's 33%. You're not going to be able to do that as easily. It's a lot easier to put 5 pounds onto a 100-pound weight stack than it is 5 pounds on, a 15 to 20-pound dumbbell. So that's why I always recommend just increasing reps first and, look at weight and sets. But eventually you'll get to a sticking point, and that's when you kind of change up either, your rep scheme, the variation of the exercise, different things you can change up rather than, just sticking at that same weight.
Yeah, that's a great point about the shoulder fly versus like a seated row. Like you're going to be able to jump way faster on a seated row than you are shoulder flies. Like that's just a testament to the muscle group that you're training. The shoulder is much smaller than the back. Like there's one muscle being targeted. Yeah, so yeah, be cognizant of the movement that's happening. That was a great point. I didn't even think of that. So, I mean, of course, but good point you just mentioned there as to progressing. So I just wanted to note that because I know it could kill somebody's confidence, that they're not going to be able to go up every single week. Maybe they took that and they're trying and it's just not working. And I think another point too of it, like recovery, is a thing, is a piece of this puzzle. Like if you're neglecting recovery, you're not going to be able to progress. Like I'm sorry, your muscles are just not going to be rebuilding if you're not having the proper fuel. Like if you're not doing the right things, getting to sleep, don't expect to come back the next week stronger. Like you're not taking care of your body to build it. So you can't neglect these pieces. Like you got to have all three. And then Jake talks about all three in the ebook. So if you're in Elevate, get this freaking ebook, man. But yeah, so I just wanted to mention that too. Like if you're not able to progress, maybe look at the other areas too. Nutrition, how am I eating? How am I sleeping? Like that can be a big piece of it.
Yeah. So before we close out, I got a question for you because I know you're all about bulking as well. So back when you were like 150, 160, skinny, just like me, and you were trying to put on size. I know you've talked about, struggling to put on size, being the skinny guy. Like, what do you think your biggest mistake was that, that you weren't doing? Like, do you think it was around training? You think it was, get enough calories? You think you weren't, recovering? Like, what do you think your biggest, I guess, setback or holdback was?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think
or it could just be a combo of all.
Well, yeah, I mean,
yeah,
there's no doubt about that.
Yeah,
it's
definitely, if you had to choose.
yeah, it's definitely a combination. I would say my nutrition was the biggest piece that was lacking. I was not eating near enough protein, and I was not eating near enough, just I would say quality overall. I ate very poorly when I was at that low of a weight. I mean, I ate horrible. It was terrible. I was training hard and I was training heavy, but until I started eating right, once I started eating right, dude, I felt like I felt like I was putting on size effortlessly.
Yep.
It was literally like, because I've always trained hard and heavy. Like there's never not been a day where I haven't trained heavy. I mean, I was in 8th grade benching 225. Like I've always trained heavy. Like junior year of high school at 16, I benched 340. Like
That's
I've
insane.
always pushed the weight. I just can't imagine what would have happened if I was actually eating properly during those times. Like, and even beyond. Like I struggled with the weight, beyond high school as well. Like into my early, I guess, like later teen years. But once I started eating right and eating enough, that's when everything changed. So I would say that was the biggest thing I was neglecting was my food.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's where my biggest issue was, is just eating, like you said, enough food, but also quality food. Like you got to be eating enough protein. You got to be eating real food. Not fast food a bunch, and just eating real healthy food and plenty of it. And I think that's the biggest issue with like the skinny guy, is he just doesn't eat enough. Like if you're in the gym going hard, like you're gonna get stronger and you're gonna put on muscle. But if you're not eating enough to fuel your body, then there's no way to possibly gain weight if you are not putting calories in your body.
Yeah.
So I think if you're struggling to gain weight, obviously training and the recovery part of it are key. But if you are not eating enough food, you are not going to gain weight. It's just simple biology. Like your body cannot add more mass if you don't eat.
Yeah. Quality, quality, quality too. Like quality. We talk about quality every time we talk about nutrition, but
Yep.
it's everything. Like quantity, I think, is irrelevant if quality is not there. Like it doesn't matter how much junk food you eat. Like you can eat as much as you want. Only thing you're going to be doing is destroying your body. But yeah, well, let's keep this training specific though before we start talking into nutrition again. If you want to hear more about nutrition, we got episodes on it, multiple episodes around different aspects of nutrition. So go listen to those. But I feel like this was a solid training episode. I hope everyone who listened, is leaving with some clarity and some confidence around stepping into the gym. If you're not, comment on the video, reach out to Jake, reach out to myself. Like we'll get you connected in some way to get your questions answered. If you're looking for a program or something, reach out to Jake. He can hook you up with a program. If you're looking for that, further one-on-one guidance, which I think everyone should be doing. If you can afford it, I think everyone should have a coach.
I mean,
So
even you and I have coaches, but like with our
yeah,
experience, even we hired coaches.
yeah. I mean, we're sitting here talking about this stuff, and we could talk about this stuff for days.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just there's another level of intensity and intentionality when you have someone pouring into you, and you learn stuff too. Like I'm not saying I've never learned anything from anyone else. Like how do I know this stuff? It's from having a coach for so long. So, but all right, that's
Yep.
a wrap, man. Good episode.
Yes, sir. Later, fellas.